Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big. Hi. Our guest today is Natacha. Natacha, please tell us where you are in the world and what you do for a living.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natacha. I am in Miami, Florida, and I am a private jeweler.
That's amazing. So I know the JNCY brand. I'll take a look at the website actually right now. Can you kind of tell us a little bit, like the story of a little bit about your background, how you got into this space and the eventual, big thing that happened for you that, made you decide to actually go in and start this brand?
Okay. So funny story, I got my degree in risk management and insurance. So I'm like totally opposite of what I should be doing in life. And I actually used my degree out of college, but the company I work for did like a massive layoff where they restructured the whole company. And they like consolidated all of the offices into just 3 hubs. And my office was not one of the offices selected. So they did give us a good head notice, like a head start to like find out for another job. They gave us 5 years. Some people give 2-week layoffs, but we got 5 years. So initially I didn't think that this was going to really happen because it's a strong company in the insurance world. They make a lot of commercials. They have a lot of arenas. So I didn't think that this would actually happen. And then as I started to see senior management leave, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is really going to happen. So I just wanted to start a business because I thought like, okay, I don't want anyone to have control over my life anymore. Not realizing that when you start a business, your customers have control over your life. But I started to research. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad first. And then that like sparked my business interest. And then I found a diamond vendor in the US. And then I was like, okay, I'll take this seriously. And then now, almost 5 years later, I'm a jeweler with the office in downtown Miami.
That's amazing. So when did you actually, when was the inception of the brand? What year did you actually start with this brand?
I started in 2019. I did research in 2018 and then started 6 months later in 2019.
Awesome. So you went like kind of right through COVID with this brand, which is a very, very similar story as I hear with a lot of people that come on the pod. They either started an online brand during COVID or, started right before and had to go through those like trials and tribulations of that time. So can you tell me a little bit about, how that affected the business and, obviously you're still here. So, what were some things you had to kind of overcome and what did you learn during that time to, keep the brand going?
I think COVID kind of helped my industry because everyone was buying jewelry, but also what hindered me during that time was I was like a new name. So when everyone was like buying like watches and engagement rings from the brands that they already knew, it kind of like didn't help me because I was like, okay, a new face. But also people wanted to support small businesses. So I started to get more of support from people that was not in Miami. So that also helped me in my business because it helped have a global reach. And now a lot of businesses that were doing like mom and pop jewelers were trying to go online. And I was already online. So it gave me more time to connect with people. I would go live. I would do informational videos about certain diamonds, why this diamond is this way, GIA reports. So it gave me an opportunity to like meet my clients where they were at, which was at home, and then give them the information that I was learning. And I think also like people really wanted to support women at that time, minorities at that time. So I think that really helped me just starting. And because I had started already and I had a little bit of pictures and a little bit of stuff before COVID hit, it kind of also helped me with being seen as an expert and my legitimacy.
That's amazing. So did you kind of start, were you online the whole time? Like since day one, was that always part of your business plan or was that something that you developed kind of more so after COVID and the pandemic hit?
That was always a business plan because I didn't think I was going to sell like engagement rings and custom pieces. I thought I was going to just like resell stuff from China. and kind of do like a drop shipping.
Right.
But the quality of the drop ship items I didn't like, because in 2018, I would buy stuff from Alibaba and, test it out. And I would wear the product like, I don't want to say the worst customer, but the customer that doesn't follow the rules, right? So I would take a shower in it, sleep in it, and then it would turn so fast. So my idea was just going to be like a drop shipper that would just get stuff from China, and then it evolved once I found my first diamond vendor.
That's amazing. So do you still have the shop in downtown Miami now?
Yeah, it's an office because I'm private, so I'll have like sample pieces for clients to see, and then I make the items as they order.
Awesome. So do you sell any? So it's more like an office. So, if somebody comes in, you have some sample pieces you kind of figure out and, figure out their needs and what they're looking for, but then it still ends up being like a shipment on the back end?
Yes, or it's made exactly to order, or because I'm in the Diamond District of Miami, I literally could go to one of my vendors and have it for them in like 10, 15 minutes. I just don't keep inventory.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so what kind of channels are you selling through? Is it just your website, or do you sell through any other channels, or is everything just direct to consumer through either through your website or people coming to the office and making custom orders?
Instagram, actually, I know it's not like an official channel, but people will send you a DM and will either send you another ring that they saw, or if they just have an idea of a piece. I recently just started an Etsy, so I'll see how that goes. I'm like slowly adding, and then I just started YouTube last week, so just doing shorts.
Nice.
To see if that could be a platform, and then starting again with TikTok. So I'm trying to now that I've established a good foothold in Instagram, I want to expand and see how I could repurpose the information I give there to other platforms.
That's awesome. So you kind of have all these social media funneling, but they all funnel back to your e-commerce kind of website, right?
Yeah.
You don't sell in any other marketplaces. It's all direct from you.
No, I tried pop-ups, but it wasn't for me. I think the price point is too much at a pop-up.
No, that's awesome. So aside from social media, do you do anything, aside from that on the marketing front? What other strategies you've employed? Do you do any paid ads, or do you have any other kind of funnel setup that are aside of social media?
I have done Facebook ads in the past, and Google ads. I'm trying to learn that. Another way I market is just partnering with people that I think my target audience would like. So, sorry, they're doing construction next door.
I can't really hear it. I think it's okay.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'll partner with influencers that are in my target audience. So one particular one I recently partnered with is with Married at First Sight. And I know a lot of people like that. So they'll either come and maybe potentially are going to get married, or if they are already married, they'll just buy some jewelry from me. So I think about doing it in those ways, and then networking locally has helped me a lot.
That's really cool. So what has your experience been like with running the paid ads? This is a big kind of area of variability, I find, in all the interviews and podcasts that we do. It's kind of the success rate and the way things kind of pan out running paid ads, because obviously social media, essentially it's kind of free. I mean, there's funnels where you can put money in to kind of elevate yourself with certain things. There's even search engine optimization for YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and stuff. But paid ads tends to be a little bit more expensive, and you obviously worry about the return on those. So how have your Facebook and Google ads kind of been? I know it sounds like it's kind of maybe a newer side of things for you, but how has it been going for you so far?
So Facebook, before the iOS 14 update, was amazing. It was I don't want to say printing money, but it felt like it was printing money, because you could run an ad, and on the low end, if I would spend $5 and maybe have 4 ads, so $20, you can make $1,000 a day easy and not even put that much effort. And I could just imagine if someone wanted to spend $100 a day. But now, at least for me, the return on investment doesn't seem like it's there, to the point where I just don't really run Facebook ads anymore. And I know that there's more that you have to put into Facebook ads now. And I've even invested in getting people from Fiverr to have the product, make it more interesting. And it still, at least for me, does not give you the same results. You would have to spend more than the 5. You would maybe have to be at $50 a day. And then I'm not sure if it's because now a lot of people know about Facebook ads. So now you have more demand. So there's more just jewelers in general, more people knowing about drop shipping than before. So for me, Facebook is good, but not as good as it used to be, because it was really good.
Yeah.
Pandemic, and it could also be people are back at work and they're just not buying as much as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think with the iOS update is something I discuss a lot, and I think that definitely has something to do with it. And then, I think kind of post-COVID, there is so many more online brands popping up since 2020, 2021. I think that for whatever reason, the barrier to entry with, Facebook and Google ads seems to be a little bit more than it used to be. That's a pretty common piece of feedback I get from a lot of folks I, interview and do the pods with. So it's really interesting. That's really right on track with what I'm hearing, kind of out in the market, which is interesting. So what do you find is, you talk about your target customer and, looking for influencers that kind of cater to your target market. And what does your kind of marketing avatar look like in an ideal customer for you?
Okay, so that's interesting because I just recently changed it because of some of the sustainability things that I'm implementing in the business. So now this customer is very eco-conscious, or if they're not, well, let me just say for the eco-conscious, they are like your typical Tom's buyer or Patagonia. They care about where the diamonds are sourced. If it's natural, they would prefer recycled diamonds, just meaning like getting diamonds that was already in use and there's no additional mining. Or they would like lab grown diamonds for ethical reasons, not really for the price point. They also may want a different sensor stone. It may not necessarily be diamond. It might be a sapphire or emerald or a moss agate. So they're more about being different. And I've noticed with those clients, they love to support small businesses. They're on Etsy, they're on Reddit. So that is my customer avatar now. And it could be either a man or a woman because both are proposing to each other. And then because I also do like custom pieces or like have, just diamond studs, that customer normally just finds me from buying the engagement ring. So they're returned customers that have purchased before and are now looking for anniversary gifts. So we already have that relationship where I know what their significant other likes, because after the ring purchase, they'll follow me. So we built that relationship online. So that's the two avatars that I'm working with.
That's interesting. So do you find that, having this more kind of like sustainability side of things, do you think that helps with getting this return business where if somebody can find, jewelry that they like and, a jeweler to work with that they like, where it's also sustainable, that could be a kind of difficult thing to find, is like, one, a good relationship that you like that also meets all your checkboxes as a person who, cares about those ethical issues. Was that kind of the reasoning why you decided to go that route with your new avatar, or were there other things that led to that decision too?
There were other things. So for me, I've always considered where the diamonds come from. And so before like COVID and when I first started, everyone wanted natural. So I would follow like the Kimberly process, making sure that it comes from the mine.
Right.
There's no child soldiers, blood diamonds. But what I noticed is that the same clients who are asking for natural are now just asking for lab. And so when I started to do the research, lab, a lot of it was more about being ethical. So that's where I started to research, okay, now that I'm getting ethical diamonds and I said ethical like that for lab is because they're created and then people are eco-conscious. So there is a lot of electricity that's being used with lab. So I started to look at like, okay, what specific vendor can I use? And as I grew from just starting a business to thinking like a CEO and having that hat, I thought about like, okay, what initiatives can this business do? And how can I just move from just selling people engagement rings to making a difference? And so then I started to look at what kind of customer that is.
All right. So what do you find, like, as far as, like demographic wise, like, does your target audience seem to be like kind of like the Gen Z, younger millennial category? I mean, I know you do, it sounds like you do a lot with, engagement rings. So I assume it's kind of like millennial-ish age, like kind of like typical, marrying age. What do you find, like, when you get any feedback on your ads or the people that interact with you on social media, like what kind of like age or other demographic information have you found is your most frequent customer base?
Who are Gen Zs again? Gen Zs are what age?
I think Gen Zs goes up to about maybe 26 or 25, and then millennials are like 25 to almost 40 now, I think. I'm pretty sure.
It's more millennials. Gen Z, not really, because I think with someone who wants to get custom, even though customs can cost the same as just buying it from a box store, I think more millennials think about that process of getting the custom. So I have gotten like 25 and up, not really like the younger, maybe like 28. Most have been like in their 30s.
That makes sense. Yeah. But that's what I would think, doing so much with, engagement, it sounds like. And it was really interesting because you would think, like, I did a pod with another woman-owned business a couple of days ago, and she said that her target audience was like just Gen Z. She's like 30 and like below, even like almost younger than that. But
oh, really?
It's a really interesting demographic to try to target, because especially post COVID, but also just I feel like the general like progression, the way that the world is going, I feel like the barrier to being a real consumer is so much older than it used to be. I feel like it used to be, a couple of years after, if you go to college or you start working at 18 right after high school, by the time you're 24, 25, you're out there in the world like really being like a genuine consumer, and you have preferences and things. But I feel like that age every year now, especially post COVID, is just getting older and older, where it's almost like up to 28, 29, even 30 before, people are really carving themselves out with preferences and not just doing things like just for the price or just for the convenience. Like, I think even people maybe 25, 26 are doing now because, it's been tough out there, the past few years. So yeah, it's really interesting though. I think that's, but that makes sense for your market. I think, with this other brand, it was food. So it was, the marketing is very much more like kind of like emotional response kind of stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It worked for Gen Z, and she was almost all 100% social media based with her marketing. They just happened to go viral on TikTok and Instagram. So they have a huge following of young people. Yeah. So, but it's a really interesting demographic to target, for those reasons, because, so many people, 26, 27, still living at home. I mean, the surveys here that come out, people like 50% of people under like 21 to 26 are living still with their parents. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a really interesting demographic to look at. It's just ever changing in that age category, it seems. But millennials with you definitely seems to make sense. So curious too, like, you think about your numbers in the past few years. How's your growth been the past 2 years, just kind of like on a percentage basis? And what do you project this year is kind of going to be? You think it's probably going to be similar with the past few years? You're expecting more growth or maybe a little bit less? Which one of those three do you feel like you're going to fall into here in 2024?
So the growth in the past couple of years has been like 15, 20%. Nice. I think this year could be a lot more, just with having Etsy as a possibility, and then like linking Etsy to Pinterest. So having more like brand awareness throughout. And then I have started to work with someone for SEO. And I know that people have mentioned SEM, but I want to get the SEO part right, and like revamping the website, where I started to think about like the user and making it more user friendly, having just little things of like the swatches of it being either white gold, yellow gold, or rose gold, so they could see it there. Also working with photographers. So I think like this beginning of the year has just been kind of like a reconstruction period. So when I do run Google ads, I can actually know who my target audience is. I can know like what hero banner to put, because if they're more like Patagonia Tom and they care about the earth, I would show different things versus what I've been showing in the past. And I feel like that could lead me to have substantial growth. And then just taking that role on TikTok. And I've just noticed, like with past jewelers on TikTok, just by giving information like I did on Instagram, they just have grown so much because people feel like they're relatable. They see different rings that they're shipping out, so there's a trust factor. So I think that could help me. I would say I think 20% is good because I get the referrals from past clients, but I think it could be even more. All that I implement goes through.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it seems like your head is in a pretty good place as far as the marketing angles go. I mean, think about, different landing pages for different types of, consumers coming in through different ads that you're running and things. Is a lot of people get lost in kind of like that transition. So it's really good that you really have like I think a good perspective on that, and I think it's a good game plan. I think you did 15-20% last year. I think with all these new things you have coming out, I mean, I don't see any reason why it couldn't go even further, right? So curious too, I guess, just trying to think about like other, I follow a few jewelers online, and one thing I always really liked was there's a few guys in the Diamond District in New York City I follow who do like, they'll wear like a GoPro, do like real diamond negotiation with like other jewelers around town. So what does your content typically look like on social media? Are you doing kind of like facial, like explanations, like real like interactions like that? Like, do you do any like real, like showing like production, or like what is your typical like story on Instagram or like a TikTok post look like for you?
Oh, okay. So I also like the people from New York. Like one of my favorite ones, he does a lot of like very funny, personable, like he'll interview people, guess like the weight of this chain or diamond. So I do like those too.
I think I know who you're talking about. I think that's one of the ones I follow too. He's always out on the street. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very funny. So for me, the way that I do a mix. So I like to show my clients because, like you mentioned, I feel like I do have a good head on my shoulders, but I think it's because of all the mistakes that I made in the past, like 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I started to learn, like, I took a step back and said, okay, let me see how bigger companies do it, because if they could do it, I could do it. So let me just start to see like how I can model it. So I tried to show my clients, show them during their weddings, during their proposals. So I'll like always like ask them like, please, can you send me pictures? So thinking of like, if I am a potential client of this person, I would want to see, did they work with people before? So just like putting myself in the foot of the shopper, like, who have they serviced before? Did they service somebody that looks like me, or maybe in the same type of relationship? So I have done people that are same sex, interracial, same race. So I've done like the gamut of the couples. So I thought of like different things like that. So I've shown the proposals, the weddings, then I'll show like a tip. Something that will let them know like, hey, this person knows what they're doing. And since I've gotten my degree from GIA, so I'll use a little bit of that. And then I'll show like how we're in the community. So if I've done some type of community service stuff, I'll put that. And then like recently I showed like how I created someone's engagement ring through the CAD design. So giving them like different aspects of seeing that. And then what I realized was a lot of the jewelers, instead of showing the cover art to your Instagram, tells a lot. So you want to draw the person in with like whatever is on the grid. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be what it's about. So like if I'm talking about ovals that day, instead of it just being maybe my face or like the start of it, I'll find a picture of a 3-carat oval and put that as the grid. And then knowing each platform is different. So knowing that if I'm on TikTok, I notice that they want to see your face more. Whereas Instagram, you don't have to show your face as much. Maybe you could do it like every 12, 15 posts, show more of the jewelry. Where TikTok, they want to see your face as the cover. And then YouTube Shorts, you only get like 60 seconds. So trying to give them like good snippets. And then LinkedIn, I realize, is more of educational. So I want to be more strategic in showing community service and education, and then like repurposing some of like my TikTok informational videos on there where I'm showing like, this is the part of the ring or this is that, because there's professionals on there that's looking for engagement. So providing them that information there. So just being strategic on each social media and how I present it there.
That's amazing. I mean, your strategic mindset for social media is pretty thorough. I mean, believe me, I've done a lot of interviews and podcasts. I mean, I'm sure, as you know, a lot of people they'll take a video and they'll just like post it across all platforms at whatever like time slot that fits for each individual channel. So I'll say again, you really sound like you have a really good handle on kind of your social media marketing that's out there. Most people don't think about the variability and the algorithms of different social medias and how to cater to and what people actually look for on those things. So I applaud you for that. I think it's really important for people to hear that, because it is really important, especially if you're a very social media driven company on the marketing side. It's really important to understand those things. So I think, for entrepreneurs listening to this pod, and maybe even a more seasoned entrepreneur that's getting more into the online space from something maybe more brick and mortar, I think it's really valuable insight. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then you said something before that prompted me. The question I like to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. I know you mentioned you made a lot of mistakes and learned from them, right? Believe me, you're not alone in that. I'm sure in the world of entrepreneurs. But if you could go back, 6 years ago, you started this company, 29 or 5 or 6 years ago. All those mistakes you made, everything you learned from them, and everything you learned along the way. If you had to pick one piece of advice to tell yourself in 2019 when you were just starting the brand, what would that one thing be? Do you think?
Okay, because this piece of advice would kind of like go into the other pieces of advice. One of my favorite business owners, his name is Pat Bet David, and he is on YouTube. And I don't think he has a podcast, but he has it's called Valuetainment on there. And I learned so much from reading his books. So I would say to watch his videos and read his books, because then his books tell you about other books that I've read. I think his information can help no matter what your business is, because like his advice is so sound. And I think what helps about his business advice is that he came from someone who had like a low GPA in high school. He said like 1.9-ish, I think. And he was in the army or in the military. I'm not sure which branch. And then he was in debt, and then he got out of debt, and it was like big debt. It was like 40 or 50,000. So he had like sound advice from someone who didn't come from the background of maybe your parents were in business. So he really was like in first generation to the US. So his advice has really helped me because he talks about different other books, how to do competitor research. And that's how I've started to get like strategic thinking, because when I read his books, like I'll read a chapter and I could automatically start to implement it. And then he'll have like videos of your next 5 moves, how to start looking at that. And that's how I just started to say, okay, let me take a step back. How are other jewelers doing it? How is Blue Nile or James Allen doing it? How is Brilliant Earth, who's more on the lab side, doing it? So then I was able to take a step back and see, okay, this is how I can do it. And so I think he gives a lot of strategy on that. So if it's not him, I would say find a mentor that can really help you, and a mentor that's there to help guide you business wise. Because some can tell you, like, for example, how to be a jeweler. You want someone who teaches you how to be like the CEO of the business versus like just how to make jewelry. Because I could be a jeweler and I could just make jewelry for someone, but how to actually run a business and make it scale is 2 different things.
So is that somebody that you found like a few years in? So you're saying like you kind of wish you had found that like right from the start to be able to have that knowledge from the get-go, rather than like how far along in the business were you when you when you came across this person as kind of like a virtual mentor?
I would say when I took his information seriously was last year, but I would watch his videos because he also like talks politics and life and stuff on there. But like if you look at his old videos, like he's interviewed Kobe and I want to say Bush and stuff like that. So he's interviewed a lot of people. Like
George Bush?
Yes, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
He like has a mob. Like I think you would like him. He has like a mob series where he's interviewed different mobsters.
Wow.
And he teaches you how to bring that back to business and how to grow your business, how to like have systems in place, how to do effective competitor analysis, how he did it when he was working at the gym, how he would call other gyms. So when he would then have someone come in, he already knew what the other gyms would say. So he already knew like how to answer that question. So it's like he thinks very strategically. I really wish that like I watched all that information and took it into consideration early, because then I would have like went to other jewelry stores and found out like how do you do your whole engagement ring process? Like, do you send them out with information? Like, what do you have when you're doing your custom engagement ring process? You know, how would you treat it if it was a woman coming in versus the man coming in? So looking at all of that, and that's what he breaks down in his like books and in his videos on YouTube.
That's amazing. You know, it's really important to have, you know, content like that out there. And that's kind of like, you know, the vision for the pod here is, you know, people getting started. I say this all the time on this podcast. It's like, so many entrepreneurs are so individualistic, and it's the reason why they have the courage to like go out and do something completely on their own, like not knowing what it's going to take, but just knowing I'll do it. If you can know that you'll do whatever it takes, you'll always figure it out. But I think some people can get a little bit lost where like they try to take on everything themselves and try to have like everything be a completely original idea, whether it comes to strategy or product development or whatever it is. There's just such a wealth of knowledge out there from you know business owners like you. Like, can you repeat the name of who you're talking about? I heard it and then I was listening and I forgot the name.
Patrick Bet David.
Patrick Bet David. I'm definitely gonna check that out. It sounds really interesting.
I wish I had his book with me. I left it at home, but his 2 books are, I think it's like Choose Your Enemy Wisely, which his enemy is not like what you would think. It's like if right now you're in a season of you don't have a lot of money, so poverty would be your enemy, and then he'll teach you how to tackle that. Then once you tackle that, then your enemy would be maybe somebody that's across the street from you that's a jeweler. And then after you graduate from that, it would be that. And then the other one is Your Next 5 Moves, which was the first book I read this year. So I'm on the 2nd book, and then his audiobooks are really good too.
That's amazing. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And just have a couple more questions for you. So another thing I always like to ask is obviously, you know, the advent of ChatGPT and all these AI tools out there, Are you utilizing anything like that? I know there's like, there's chatbots out there for e-commerce stores that could be pretty cool when they work well. Are you utilizing anything like that to, develop your social media strategy, or just like indirect customer facing as well?
I love ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT is like my best friend, but you have to know how to use it, and that's what I learned from there was like a Reddit thread that I went on. Like, you have to know how to use it because it's only as effective as the user. So if you're putting give me a content calendar, it'll do that. But if you say give me a content calendar for a private jeweler that mission is about ethical sourcing, it'll give you completely different things. So I think it's really good, but again, it's as good as the user. And also, like, I like to delegate. So I'll then teach my VAs how to use ChatGPT. So then I won't have to use it. But then sometimes, like, you have to kind of coach them on how to use it because they're not thinking like how you're thinking. But I think it's like one of the best inventions ever, to be honest.
No, for sure. I heard somebody recently say that, basically the past 100 years has been the steam engine, the internet, and now like generative AI. It's kind of like the big three things of the past 100 years. And that really like put in perspective to me. It's like, it really is going to be like as world changing, and like it already has been, but like it is going to be as world changing as like those other two like very pivotal inventions. So it's a fun time to be involved. And, it sounds like you're doing the front end work of, realizing the full potential of it, and, learning how to prompt correctly and to use it to its full potential. Because, if you don't, it's going to be, it's not going to be good. It's like, people fell behind at the advent of the internet, thought it was going to be nothing, thought it was a fluke idea. I don't think people think that about AI. I think more of the AI conversation, at least for, not that there's real like opponents to it. I mean, most people agree. It's like, it's helpful if you know how to use it. I think people just don't realize the extent of what it can actually do.
Yeah.
And think like, you can get away with not using it, which like, of course you can. Like what you can do if you know how to use it or like embrace it is just, it's next level, like you say. So yeah, that's amazing. Have you ever seen any like the chatbots that are used? Like, so many of the websites I go to, like they have like these, like, it's like a little face and it says like, how can we help you? And it's like, 3 a.m. I'm like scrolling on some random website about to like impulse buy something, and it shows like, a little like person's face. It's a very like welcoming kind of face where they have like a name, depending on your region, it'll be like, it'll do all that stuff for you. Okay. And it'll answer questions about you, and you can, it'll be pre-trained to like all the information on your website, everything you would want a person to know, based on different questions that they can ask, and things like that. Yeah, those are becoming really big at e-commerce stores, and yeah, if that's not something you've looked into yet, it's they're really very cool. It's basically like having a 24-hour salesman, as like a little like assistant on your website. It's very cool. Yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna look into that one.
Awesome. Yeah. So last thing, I just want to give you an opportunity to let people know after they listen to the pod or they come across you, how they can stay in touch with you. If you want to shout out any of your social media handles, say the website out loud again for people, and anything else you want to plug, or just let people know how to stay in touch.
Okay. So again, my name is Natacha. I'm a private jeweler and a GIA Diamond graduate. Almost done with my GG, which is the graduate gemologist degree. So I'll be able to like identify different stones and do appraisals. I'm in Miami, Florida, but I have done engagement rings from people from Miami to even Australia. I am available online, which is www.jncyjewelers.com. And that is the handle on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube now. And my last piece of advice just to anyone who wants to be a business owner is that you definitely can do it. If I could do it, you could do it, because I'm in an industry that typically does not look like me. It's not woman. It's not minority. So it's like an older Jewish man dominated industry. But I will say, even though you can do it, just think strategically and also get people around you that can help you. Delegate your tasks. You can find someone on Upwork for an affordable price and have them do the tasks that you cannot do or don't want to do. So you can focus on what you want to do. And that's something that I also learned later on. So it's kind of like hard picking, but I would say delegate as much as you can, but also train them before you delegate, because you don't want to just send them out there. And then if it's not done the way you want and you blame them. So train them, learn your career first, train them, and then delegate to have, a well-oiled machine.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that advice. Natacha, I just want to say thank you again for coming on, and there's been a lot of nuggets of wisdom in here. I think people can certainly learn a lot from listening to this. You've been very insightful. I think there's a lot of value here, so I really appreciate your time. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
No, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you to Natacha. Thanks, everybody.